Welcome to this deep dive, into Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Okay.
We're going to kind of uncover this surprising connection, between tiny 1% improvements
Oh, yeah.
and the success of British cycling and how those same principles
Right.
can transform your life.
Absolutely. It's really not about setting massive goals you might never reach, you know? It's
Right.
it's more about the system for
Yeah.
lasting change.
And that's what hooked me right away.
Yeah.
Was James Clear's, story of his near-fatal accident.
Oh, wow.
It's a powerful example of this.
Yeah.
Imagine going through a traumatic brain injury,
Oh my gosh.
multiple broken bones.
Yeah.
It was during his recovery
Right.
that he discovered the power of these atomic habits.
You had to relearn basic things like walking and talking.
Really?
Small habits like getting enough sleep or organizing his dorm room
Wow.
became the building blocks of his recovery.
Yeah, and it really highlights how even seemingly insignificant actions can make a massive difference
Huge difference.
when compounded over time.
Exactly.
It's like those small, consistent investments that build up to a huge retirement fund.
Absolutely.
But what about the British cycling team?
Yeah.
I remember they were practically the laughingstock
Oh, yeah.
of the cycling world.
Absolutely. There's this incredible story
Yeah.
where a top bike manufacturer refused to sell them bikes
Wow.
because they were afraid it would hurt their image
Really?
if other professionals saw them riding their gear.
That's crazy.
I know.
So it's amazing how things changed when Dave Brailsford took over as coach.
It is.
His aggregation of marginal gains philosophy.
Yes.
The idea of making 1% improvements in every aspect of their training
Right.
completely revolutionized the team.
Think about it. They focused on everything from the type of pillars the riders used
Oh, wow.
to reduce neck strain
Wow.
to the most aerodynamic way to wash their hands
Wow.
to minimize wasted energy.
That's wild. I mean, those tiny tweaks
Mm.
led them to dominate the Olympics and the Tour de France
Unbel-
just a few years later.
Yeah.
It just makes you think about what's possible when we focus on those small improvements instead of getting overwhelmed
Right.
by these big goals.
Huge goals. Yeah.
But how do we even begin to apply this
Yeah.
1% better concept to our own lives?
So imagine if you identified just one small area.
Okay.
Maybe it's related to your health, your work, or a personal project,
Yeah.
and committed to getting 1% better each day.
So instead of trying to overhaul my entire diet overnight,
Yeah.
I could focus on swapping sugary drinks for water,
Exactly.
one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Or if I want to write a book,
Yeah.
I could commit to writing just one page per day.
That's it. You got it.
Those small wins build momentum and confidence,
They do.
making it easier to stick with the habit and see those 1% gains compound over time.
Absolutely.
That's a powerful way to reframe our goals.
It is.
But how did these atomic habits actually work?
Yeah.
What's the science behind all of this?
So James Clear breaks down the science of habits into a 4-stage loop. Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay, let's break that down a bit further.
Okay.
I need a real-world example to grasp this.
Picture this. You're at work feeling stressed and you reach for a sugary snack.
Oh, yeah.
The feeling of stress is your cue.
Okay.
The desire for a quick energy boost or a distraction from work,
Gotcha.
that's your craving.
Okay.
The act of eating the snack,
Yeah.
that's your response. And the temporary relief you get from that sugar rush,
Yeah.
that's your reward.
So it's like a cycle that keeps repeating itself.
It is a cycle.
But how do we actually use this knowledge to build better habits?
So here's where it gets practical. By understanding these 4 stages, you can hack the system.
Okay.
Clear lays out the 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
Make it obvious.
Okay.
Make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
All right, so let's say I want to drink more water.
Okay.
I can make it obvious by keeping a full water bottle on my desk.
There you go.
I can make it attractive by adding sliced fruit. Make it easy by using a bottle I love.
Right.
And make it satisfying by acknowledging each sip as a small victory.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing that to break a bad habit, you just reverse the process.
You got it.
Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
You got it.
So if you're trying to cut back on social media,
Yeah.
you could delete the apps from your phone,
That's one way to do it.
log out of your accounts on your computer, and find other activities
Exactly.
to replace that scroll time.
Yeah.
Those are really tangible strategies.
They are.
I can already see how those small adjustments could make a big difference.
They can.
But, Clear also talks about the importance of something he calls identity change.
He does.
What exactly does that mean?
So this is where things get really interesting. He argues that lasting change comes not just from changing your actions,
Right.
but from changing your beliefs about who you are.
Whoa, this identity thing is blowing my
I
mind.
know, it's a big one.
Can you give me a real-world example of how someone shifted their identity to change a habit?
Absolutely. Clear talks about Brian Clark, an entrepreneur who finally managed to stop biting his nails.
Okay.
He did it by getting regular manicures.
Really?
By taking care of his nails and feeling proud of how they looked, he shifted his identity from someone who bites their nails to someone who takes care of their hands.
So it's not just about stopping the action, it's about changing the story you tell yourself about who you are.
You got it.
Instead of focusing on, I want to stop biting my nails, he focused on, I am someone who takes care of their hands.
Exactly.
That shift in identity made it easier to resist the urge to bite.
Absolutely.
So if I want to be a runner,
Yeah.
it's not enough to just start running.
Right.
I need to start seeing myself as a runner,
Yes.
embracing that identity.
Absolutely.
It's like those small habits are votes for the type of person I want to become.
That's a great way to put it. And that brings us to another powerful aspect of habit formation.
Okay.
Making habits attractive.
Ooh, temptation bundling.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. Tell me more.
It's a clever strategy where you link an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Okay.
Remember Ronan Byrne, the guy who hacked his stationary bike to only play Netflix while he was cycling?
Wait, he made it so he could only watch Netflix while exercising?
He did.
That's brilliant. He turned his workout into a binge-watching session.
Exactly. By bundling something he needed to do with something he enjoyed, he made exercise irresistible.
I love that.
But temptation bundling isn't the only way to make habits more attractive.
There's more. I'm all ears.
Our social environment also plays a huge role.
Okay.
We tend to pick up the habits of those around us, our friends, family, and even the people we admire.
It's like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
And James Clear highlights this fascinating story
Okay.
about the Polgar sisters, 3 Hungarian sisters,
Okay.
who were all raised to be chess prodigies.
I've heard of them. Weren't they all grandmasters?
Their father believed that anyone could become a genius with the right training and environment.
Wow.
So he created a culture in their home that revolved around chess.
So they were practically immersed in a world of chess from a young age.
They were homeschooled, surrounded by chess books, and played for hours every day.
Wow. And all 3 sisters achieved incredible success in the world of chess.
They did.
That makes me wonder, are we surrounding ourselves with people and environments that support the habits we want to build?
That is a great question.
Or are we unknowingly sabotaging our own progress?
It's worth thinking about.
So finding a tribe that aligns with your goals can be a powerful motivator.
Absolutely.
But even with all these strategies, sticking with new habits can be tough.
It can.
How do we overcome those challenges and make those positive changes last?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. We're just getting started. Welcome back to our deep dive into atomic habits. We've talked about small changes leading to big results, the science behind habit formation, and the power of identity shifts and social influence.
Yeah.
Now let's explore how to overcome those inevitable challenges and make those positive changes stick.
Right.
I feel like this is where I always struggle with the sticking with it part.
That's where James Clear's Goldilocks rule comes in.
Okay.
It's about finding that sweet spot where a task is challenging enough to keep you engaged, but not so difficult that you get discouraged.
Okay, I know the Goldilocks story,
Yeah.
but what's poor got to do with building habits?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
If a task is too easy, it's boring.
Yeah.
If it's too hard, it's frustrating.
Right.
But when it's just right,
Yeah.
it hits that sweet spot of motivation where you're fully engaged and making progress without feeling overwhelmed.
So it's about finding that perfect balance between boredom and frustration.
Yeah.
I like that.
Clear uses a great example, comedian Steve Martin.
Okay.
He didn't just jump onto a stage and do a 2-hour stand-up routine.
Right.
He started small, gradually increasing the length of his act as his skills and confidence grew.
So he found that Goldilocks zone
He did.
that kept him motivated to keep refining his craft.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense. Instead of trying to change everything at once,
Right.
it's about starting with something manageable and gradually stepping up the challenge.
That's the explore-exploit trade-off in action.
Okay.
Early on, you want to explore different approaches to a habit, experimenting with different techniques to see what works best for you.
Yeah.
Then, once you've found a strategy that clicks, you can start exploiting it, refining that approach to maximize your results.
So explore like a curious adventurer,
Yeah,
and then exploit like a savvy entrepreneur.
exactly.
I like those analogies. Makes it easier to remember. But how do we actually overcome the biggest hurdle to habit formation?
Yeah.
You know, the one where our brains crave instant gratification.
Ah, yes. The brain's preference for immediate rewards can be a real challenge when you're trying to stick with habits that have long-term benefits.
Yeah, it's easier to reach for that cookie now than wait for the satisfaction of reaching your fitness goals months down the line.
It is?
That's my struggle all the time. I need that instant gratification.
Yeah.
So how do we rewire our brains to delay gratification and embrace those long-term rewards?
One strategy Clear highlights is making the habit itself more satisfying.
Okay.
He tells this story about Anne Thorndike,
Okay.
a doctor who dramatically improved hand-washing habits at a hospital
Really?
by simply making the soap more readily available and more pleasant to use.
So instead of dry, cracked hands from those harsh hospital soaps, the staff was actually enjoying the experience of washing their hands.
They were.
I never thought about it that way. It's amazing how these small changes can have such a big impact.
They can.
But what about when the rewards are even further down the line?
Right.
How do we stay motivated when we're facing that future you problem?
That's where understanding how our brains work can give us a real advantage. Clear shares this fascinating story about a proposed nuclear code volunteer.
Wait, what a nuclear code volunteer?
Yeah.
Tell me more. This sounds intense.
The idea was that in order to launch a nuclear weapon, the president would have to personally kill someone. A volunteer carrying the launch codes implanted next to their heart.
Wow. That's a pretty dark thought experiment.
It is.
But I can see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's about making the consequences more immediate and tangible.
Exactly. It highlights how powerful immediate consequences can be in shaping our choices. And while we're not dealing with nuclear launch codes, we can use this principle to our advantage in our own lives.
Okay.
One way is through a habit contract.
Okay.
A written or verbal agreement where you state your commitment to a habit, the consequences of not following through, and you enlist an accountability partner to hold you to it.
So it's like having a personal trainer for your habits.
You could say that.
You're not just relying on willpower. You've got someone in your corner cheering you on and reminding you of the stakes.
Exactly. Knowing that there's a price to pay, whether it's a financial penalty, missing out on a fun activity, or even just disappointing someone you respect, can be a powerful motivator to stay on track.
And it brings those consequences into the present moment instead of letting them linger in the fuzzy realm of future you problems.
It does.
But I also know I can get obsessed with tracking progress.
Yeah.
How do we track our habits without getting too fixated on the numbers?
That's where Goodhart's law comes into play.
Okay.
When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
So how do we use tracking effectively without letting it become an obsession?
Think of it like using a compass to guide you on a journey.
Okay.
You check it periodically to make sure you're heading in the right direction, but you don't stare at it constantly missing the scenery along the way.
That's a great analogy.
Hmm.
It's about using data to inform our actions,
Yeah.
not to dictate them.
Exactly. And remember, habit change is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be days when you stumble when you miss a workout or indulge in that extra cookie.
Yeah.
What matters most is getting back on track as quickly as possible.
It's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
But how do we make sure we are constantly improving and not just going through the motions?
That's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. We're about to uncover the secrets to long-term habit success. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into atomic habits. We've learned so much about the science of small changes and how to make them stick. But I've always wondered about the role of talent. Does everyone have the same potential to excel at anything with the right habits, or are some of us just wired differently?
That's a great question. You know, while James Clear emphasizes that we can all improve with the right habits, he also acknowledges the role of our natural inclinations.
Okay.
We all have strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
and those can definitely impact how easily we pick up certain habits.
So it's not just about willpower.
Right.
Our personalities and predispositions play a role too.
Absolutely. Our genes influence our personalities, which in turn shape our habits. For instance, if you're someone who's highly conscientious, naturally organized and disciplined, you might find it easier to stick to habits like planning your day or keeping your workspace tidy.
Yeah, it's like those habits feel more natural
Right.
because they align with your inherent tendencies.
Exactly. And on the flip side, if you're someone who thrives on spontaneity and variety, Forcing yourself into a rigid routine might backfire.
Yeah.
It's about finding habits that complement your personality, not trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
So how do we figure out where our own talents lie? How do we discover those habits that are most likely to lead us to success?
Clear talks about this concept of finding a game where the odds are in your favor.
Okay.
It's about choosing to focus on habits and activities that align with your natural strengths.
So it's about playing to our strengths
Yeah,
instead of constantly trying to overcome our weaknesses.
precisely. It doesn't mean we can't improve in areas where we struggle, but we're likely to see more dramatic results and stick with habits longer when they leverage our natural abilities.
This is starting to make a lot of sense, but how do we actually find that sweet spot?
Yeah.
The intersection of our interests and our abilities.
Remember the explore-exploit trade-off we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
It applies here, too, in the beginning. It's crucial to explore different options, experiment with various habits, and see what resonates. Think of it like trying on different hats to see which one fits best.
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's about embracing that curiosity and trying new things without the pressure of committing right away.
Exactly. Once you've explored a bit and found a habit that you enjoy that aligns with your strengths and that seems to be producing positive results, that's when you can shift into exploit mode.
Yeah.
You can focus your energy on refining that habit, mastering the technique,
Yeah.
and really digging deep.
So explore like an adventurous traveler and exploit like a skilled craftsman.
That's a great way to remember it. But even when we find those habits that really click, how do we ensure we're not just coasting, but striving for excellence?
That's a great point. It's easy to get complacent once you've established a good habit. How do we maintain that momentum and keep pushing ourselves to improve?
Clear tells this inspiring story about the Los Angeles Lakers and their legendary coach, Pat Riley.
Okay.
He used this metric called Career Best Effort, or CBE, to track and improve the team's performance.
I remember reading about that he basically analyzed every aspect of their game,
Right.
from points scored to turnovers,
Yeah.
and challenged them to get 1% better in each area every season.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about individual players trying to outdo their previous stats. It was about the whole team embracing this mindset of continuous improvement, constantly raising the bar for what was possible.
That's such a powerful example of how a commitment to getting just a little bit better each day can lead to incredible results.
Absolutely. And we can apply that same principle to our own habits. Clear stresses the importance of reflection and review. Taking the time to step back and assess how our habits are serving us, making adjustments when needed, and constantly looking for ways to optimize our approach.
So it's not a set it and forget it process.
Yeah.
It's about actively engaging with our habits, monitoring our progress, and making tweaks along the way.
Exactly. It can be as simple as keeping a habit journal, having regular check-ins with yourself, or even just asking yourself at the end of each day, what went well today? What could I have done better? It's about becoming the architect of your own life, consciously designing the systems that support the person you want to become.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into atomic habits, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
It's the success is not an event, it's a process. It's not about achieving one big goal. It's about making small, sustainable changes day after day. It's about falling in love with the process of continuous improvement. And remember, the most powerful outcomes are often delayed. Be patient, stick with it, and trust that those small habits compounded over time can lead to remarkable results.
Those are words to live by. It's not about being perfect, it's about getting 1% better each day. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits.